We are very privileged to have in our presence today our keynote speaker, Mr. Fortunato Boy de la Peña is the Secretary of Science and Technology at the Philippines Department of Science and Technology. Under the current administration, he's the Cabinet Secretary for DOST, in other words. Now, before he assumed leadership of the department, he served as President of the Philippine Association for the Advancement of Science and Technology since 2011, and he has been the Undersecretary of the Department of Science and Technology under 2 previous administrations. He also served as Chairman of the United Nations Commission on Science and Technology for Development. He is the President of the Philippine Institute for Chemical Engineers and the Association of Management and Industrial Engineers of the Philippines. He was the President. And he also headed the Small Enterprises Research and Development Foundation and the NEC Foundation. I'm very proud to say that he was my professor. I'm very proud of him. Ladies and gentlemen, do join me in welcoming the Honorable Secretary Fortunato de la Peña.
Sino ba sabihin ko na lang next, ano? Okay. Good morning, everyone. I understand that we have delegations from different universities. Initially, it was for me a little difficult to imagine, of course, Imagineering ito, no? To imagine how we can have a discussion on food supply, knowing that traditionally this is always associated with the agriculture group, okay? But looking at the lineup of speakers today, we can see that there is clearly a very important role that people from the other side, from the engineering and more specifically from the industrial engineering side can do in relation to ensuring food security. So I will also like to recognize the presence of my colleague from DOST, Ms. Russell Pili. Tayo naman, Russell. And si Edward, who helped me, okay, starting from the time when we had the first planning for this particular session, I requested them to join me. So the next slide actually is the Global Food Security Challenge. Okay, does anybody know how many billion people are there now in the whole world? How many? 7. Between 7 to 8 billion probably. And out of that number, we can see here a report from the Food and Agriculture Organization. I hope you can see there that there are around 795 million people that go hungry every day. 2 billion lack the nutrients required for a healthy life, and there are 3.2 billion, laki nun, ano, that are expected to be overweight or obese by 2030. Okay? Sama na ako doon sa overweight. And by 2050, the world will feed 9 billion people. Of course, the continuing risks are malnutrition, hunger, and even conflict because of food shortage. Now, yesterday, I was in the 3rd National Research and Development Conference sponsored by the Department of Science and Technology, and there were probably about 15 completed research projects that were reported on, selected from a wide array of projects that have been completed under the sponsorship of the Department of Science and Technology, and one of them is on reducing malnutrition. The statistics are quite sad to note that in this part of the world, even just in Southeast Asia, we are one of the countries that has the highest incidence of malnutrition, particularly at the ages 5 and below. Okay, so we are running like 20% malnutrition. At the same time, we have a big percentage of people that are malnourished in a different way. They are overweight and obese. Okay? So on one hand, meron tayong mga underweight, malnourished, meron naman tayong a big percentage also na overweight and obese. Now, the next slide will tell us why ensuring food security, or what ensuring food security is all about. It is not just about food and feeding people, okay? It's about the complexity and practicality of delivering sufficient food to a national population. I was in Batanes. For the first time in my life, I was in Batanes last week for a DOST event, okay? And I learned certain things. One, there is an upsurge of tourists in Batanes, okay? So they say, I think there are about 3,000, how many? No, 3,000 people a month are visiting Batanes. Hindi lang siguro, there are 4 flights, you know? And if they just carry around 80 people each, so there are probably around 300 people coming in every day. And the governor reported that they have 3 major problems now. One is food supply, because it's not easy to bring food in Batanes, and they cannot trace all the kind of food that are needed. Second, the water shortage. And the third is the usual generation of waste, okay, by tourists. Okay? Now, they are asking the help of DOST in all of this. Doon ko na-discover na doon pala ang isang staple, kamote. So you practically eat kamote every meal. I was served turon. I was so excited. I thought it was the usual turon we eat in Diliman. To find out that it's kamote turon. Okay? I was served cake, and it is kamote cake. Okay? And so practically everything is kamote. Now, so there is a problem how to ship in rice also, and meat, because they have plenty of goats and cattle, but the demand for pork is so high that the supply cannot meet the demand. So the governor even told me, I went to Babuyan Islands. Have you ever heard of Babuyan Islands? Where it's an island, a group of islands. Total population is only 2,000 people, but they have so many animals, livestock, pigs and cattle, so many. But the problem is shipping them out, okay? Because it's really so isolated, and even just bringing from Babuyan to Batanes, it takes a long time and so much expense. So this is the complexity that I'm talking about, and practicality of delivering sufficient food. Yun, I'm only talking of Batanes. Now talk of the whole national population. So it has something to do also about rapid population growth and increasingly urbanized societies. So for example, in rapidly urbanizing centers or areas, the agricultural land is being eaten up, okay, by other uses like housing and commercial and industrial uses, and a vulnerable agricultural environment due to climate change. I got a report because we have been doing, supporting a lot of food processing research, and it includes researches on mango, on innovations in terms of derivatives from mango that can be sold or exported. And there are many innovative products that have been developed. Now the problem is that we got reports that the yield of mango in just 1 year has declined by 70%. Okay, imagine that. So try buying mangoes today. It's so expensive, di ba? Dati you can buy mango siguro at 60 a kilo. Now it's 150 a kilo. Namamalengke ko kaya alam ko yan. Okay, so it's about factors that increasingly threatens the food system. Next slide. Okay. Sino ba yung nagmamanage nung ano? Okay. So what makes it complex, the food security issue complex? Well, it requires now improvements in the productivity of the agriculture sector. Considering limited resources, you still have to increase productivity. You have to make it sustainable, and we have to face the problem of wastage. Okay, there is a chart on the left-hand side about wastage of food. Okay, and you can see that the more developed countries actually have more wastages in terms of on the consumer side. Okay, and the other countries have more wastages in bringing it from production to the retail market. Okay? So what do we mean by that? Yung wastages in bringing it from the point of production to the retail market is affected by the kind of packaging that we use, the kind of transportation that we use, and even the existence of infrastructure to transport them. Now, the wastages at the consumer end is, well, exactly what it says. Itinatapon ng pagkain, hindi nauubos, itinatapon lamang. Okay? So, yun ang ating mga problema. So, we have to first, rural and farming communities are now typically experiencing higher incidence of poverty and hunger. So, sila yung nagpo-produce ng food, pero sila pa yung nasa poverty, below poverty level, and have difficulties in food to eat. And of course, we have to contend with the impact of agriculture on the environment also. Like agriculture accounts for 30% of greenhouse gases and 70% of freshwater withdrawals because we need water for agriculture. And waste is really a problem. The next slide will tell us next that there are emerging trends, okay, that are important in addressing the key issues on food security and agriculture. I will not read anymore the small words that are printed, contained in the subsequent slides. The next slide will show us that the use of technology and the generation of innovations can help transform the global food systems, okay? I was in one of the towns in Iloilo last January. I cannot remember if it is Saraga or it sounds like that, the town that I visited. But I was brought there by our DOST regional people to show me a particular farmers association that DOST has helped. Basically, the help that we have extended was in terms of a more efficient meal that they can use. Because this group of farmers have decided to focus on one particular commodity. They are producing only pigmented rice. So they produce the brown rice, they produce red rice, they produce black rice, and they command actually a higher price in the market. Now, the use of the meal that we have provided them, initially, it is a grant actually to that association, actually has improved the quality of the pigmented rice that they have produced. But what interested me most is that when they introduced the members of the association, there were about 30 members. I cannot believe to see before me 4 graduates of Philippine Science High School who are members of the Farmers Association. So I cannot believe, sabi ko dito lang ako nakakita ng mga graduate ng Pisay na nasa farm. Okay, but actually hindi naman sila full-time farmer. They own some of the land that is part of the collective area, but they were helping. Number one, the head of the association is a Philippine Science High School graduate. He actually left the country and worked abroad for more than 20 years. He just came home because the father died and nobody will take over the assets that he left. Okay, so he decided to come back for good, and he now heads that Farmers Association, which is introducing a lot of innovations that improve their productivity and profitability. The other members are from different disciplines. One is a geodetic engineer, another one is an ECE, and they showed me actually a model of one of the things that they have developed, no, to improve the productivity through innovation. Meron silang dinevelop na robot na lumalakad dun sa between the rows of rice. Sila yung robot na yung nagbubunot ng mga weeds in the area. So, kasi hindi naman sa gusto nilang mawalan ng trabaho yung farmer, pero mahirap nang humanap ng mga tao ngayon na gustong gumawa ng ganung trabaho. Okay? So, to me, that is an important innovation. Okay, so it says here, harnessing the power of technologies like big data, the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, machine learning, advanced materials, 3D printing, and blockchain, and improving consumer nutrition, increasing the supply chain efficiency and transparency, and boosting farmer productivity. Many of the things I think that I mentioned here will be discussed by our other speakers. So the next slide is on value chain efficiency, and this is, I think, what our subsequent speakers will take up. This is, to me, where the IEs will come in, really. Process optimization with economic and social benefits, including the reduction of food loss and waste. Okay? So I will not go into detail anymore into the items here, but it says here, relying on smallholder value chains to guarantee a sustainable supply of product. In other words, we don't have to deal with big, shall we say, stakeholders here, hopefully, to complete the value chain and promoting sustainable agriculture through farm productivity assistance and, of course, measuring and reporting the environmental footprint. But what comes to mind immediately here are two major areas of research that the Department of Science and Technology is supporting. One of them is in the area of packaging, because we can reduce a lot of losses by improved packaging of our food products. You know? Can you? Well, I saw a very recent packaging that was developed by our group. This is the packaging of strawberries that are transported from, let us say, from Baguio to here. Because normally when we buy the strawberries, we just buy them and there is a yung mga traditional way of packaging. But I saw that they have developed one that is really ano lang siya, made of cardboard, and then there is a di ko alam kung degradable plastic that they use. Now, of course, the other one is in the area of processing, because processing of the primary produce is also important to reduce losses. Hindi naman sa nagyayabang ako, pero nung January, this was in March, last month, we were invited to go to Sulu. Okay? So I was afraid, I was initially afraid to go there because of what we hear about peace and order situation. But jokingly, my undersecretary told me, "Don't worry, sir, about kidnapping, okay? Because the ones who invited us are the kidnappers." No, but really, we were invited to take a look how we can introduce technology. Because immediately when I was brought around, I was brought in a place called Bodega Street. Bodega Street. It's all bodega. It contains abaca, it contains coffee, it contains copra, and everything is just raw, okay, dried, okay, and then ready to ship outside like Zamboanga without further value-adding processes, okay? And even the marine products are treated similarly from out of the sea, then put ice, and then shipped out to Zamboanga. So let's move on to the next slide. I will go fast on this. Innovation as a key driver, and this was, we derived this from the publication of the Global Innovation Index of 2017. The next slide. By the way, in the Global Innovation Index, the Philippines is number 74 out of 147 countries. Okay, so we are still low. We are somewhere the median. So I was so happy when President Duterte made his speech in Boao, China, April 10, he was one of 8 heads of countries that delivered a statement, and he focused actually on the importance of 3 things. He said, I would like to really put a lot of emphasis and investments in number 1, infrastructure, number 2, innovation, and number 3, interconnectivity. So, ang daling tandaan, tatlong I, infrastructure, alam ni Job to, innovation, and interconnectivity. And when he talked about innovation, he said, I would like the Philippines, our goal is to be on the top 1/3 by the end of 2022. So now we are in the median, so he says we would like to be in the top 33%. I think that would be achievable considering the improvement that we have over the past year. The next one would, here, go back to the innovation, feeding the world. Agri-food systems as a source of innovation. Actually, the agriculture and food sector is an important source of technological change, innovation, and development. Okay. Now, for example, our major thrust in agriculture are, of course, improving productivity for the different commodities, whether they are agricultural crops or whether they are livestock. Okay? So in the process, there is a lot of innovation that is being generated, not only in terms of improving yield, but also in terms of controlling pests that are, or diseases that are actually posing as problems in production. I again am happy to note I saw what the OST supported in Isabela State University. We had an integrated goat production center that demonstrated the different technologies involved and what innovations that they have generated. So in that area, we promote already insemination in goats, okay? Just like in Carabao at the Carabao Center. And they have already instituted innovations on the storage of goat semen, okay, that will be used for AI. And even in the technology of the actual collection of the semen, they have also improved. And finally, they have improved the processing of the products, particularly goat meat. Now, there is one item here that probably needs some sharing with you, and these are the researches that some of our universities are doing with the native livestock that we have. Kaya tayo kasi, sa panahon ngayon, ang kinakain na lang natin ay yung mga pagmanok, yung galing sa mga poultry, okay? Pagbaboy, yung mga galing sa piggery, yung mapuputing baboy, at pagka-duck, okay? Ang favorite natin Peking duck, syempre. You know? But really, we have native indigenous livestock, okay? And what we are doing now is first to purify the lines, okay? So that we can learn, okay, what will be the kind of culture and raising practices that will produce more offspring and that will improve the yield in terms of meat and also dairy. Okay, so meron na tayo ngayong na-develop na tatlong pure lines of duck. Okay, we call them itik pinas ang tawag namin sa lahat, pero merong itim at merong puti at merong kaki. Yung kaki medyo brown. Okay, mataas ang yield nila in terms of egg laying. Okay, and so the problem now is propagating these pure lines. We are also doing that in native chicken. So far, we have identified 9 indigenous native product lines for chicken. Okay, the ones that I have seen are the one in Iloilo and the one in Zamboanga. So this is the same for the pigs. You know, alam ba ninyo ang pinakamahal na lechon and native pig? hinahanap talaga ng mga maglilitsyon yung native pig, mas masarap siya. Kaya ang taas ng demand, and so we are looking at how we can produce more. Ang isa pa, nakakatulong ito sa ating small households na hindi kailangan ng malaking poultry o malaking piggery para sila ay kumita. Next slide is labeled From Flow to Smart Digital Agriculture. Both the public and private sectors will need to keep the R&D, research and development pipeline flowing. Investments to ensure that innovative technologies and techniques are brought to fruition, these are required. So, for example, we are now, as you can see here, we are using a convergence of biology, agronomy, plant and animal science, digitization, and robotics, okay, to transform the agri-food value chain. We have a program that has been developed by UPIEAA Los Baños, supported by DOST. We call it SARAI, which really is smart agriculture for a more resilient, ewan ko yung I, at saka A and I, hindi ko na matandaan. But this is really smart agriculture where you use all of this, the biology, the robotics, and the digital technologies to, for example, let the farmer know how much water you will put into a particular kind of soil, what kind of fertilizer that you will use, when will be the best time to harvest, etc., etc. Next slide. Okay, I'm about to finish. This is addressing the bottlenecks along the value chain. I have already mentioned some of the bottlenecks earlier, like problems with post-harvest processing, problems with packaging, even problems with processing, and also the shipping and distributing of the goods. But in here, it says incentivizing agricultural innovation with good institutions, stronger linkages, and out-of-the-box thinking. And this is where DOST has thought of identifying research centers in universities in the regions. No more concentration in the urban centers like Manila or Cebu. We have looked for centers in the regions that have expertise, that we can help to carry out good research in very specific areas. So, for example, we have now a center for citrus research in the Nueva Vizcaya State University. We have a center for freshwater products, fisheries products in the Isabela State University. They are focusing on freshwater eel and in ludong, which is a very expensive fish. And the same can be said in different parts of the country. We also have what we call niche research centers in other areas, like in the area of medicine and in the different fields of engineering. And the next slide would be just to make you aware. After this, you have the next slide, which is advancing local innovation. We now have a chapter 14 in the Philippine Development Plan. Before, wala tayong chapter ng science, technology, and innovation. But we have now, and it is one of the items in the 10-point agenda of the President. So these are what we have identified as the DOST Food Security Program, the identification of the problems, the initiatives that we have taken, and the expected outcomes. And finally, actually, ito yata yung pinaka-importante, but I'm sure that this will be discussed more by our other speakers, i.e., next one. Next slide. Ito na, IE in agriculture, the dawn of managed farm factories. So, I don't know how this material can be shared with you, but there is a table here comparing a typical company and that of an agricultural enterprise. So, it says here, we have the definition of a company as the basic enterprise unit in manufacturing, and in agriculture, company refers to a farm. Okay? The operator in a manufacturing company are the factory employees. In agriculture, they are the farm workers. Okay, and there are comparisons that are made here. The items that are used, the bill of materials, the materials requirement, the work orders, the assembly line and workstation flow. They have compared the farm into a factory, and this is how we can use IE in the process. The next slide is still IE and agriculture, and this is a comparison, for example, of actually a continuation of the first one. We have a comparison of what equipment are used in manufacturing and in farming. Okay, what are the manufacturing processes? There's a comparison in manufacturing and in farming. Even the quality control procedures are compared, the warehousing, shipping, and the product traceability. So pwede mong i-treat yung farm like a factory. Okay, the next slide. Okay, IE and the value chain engineering in food processing systems. We have here identified 4 stakeholders: the producers, the processors, the distributors, and the consumers. And there are key issues in every step, okay? And this is, I think, where the use of IE approaches can be very useful from from the different processes that we have here, from the producers and the processors and the distributors and even the consumers, and we can apply the approaches in IE to make it more efficient. I would like to, there are still a few slides here, but all of these are comparing the farm with the factory. So I will just leave it there, and I will just listen to the next presenters because I'm sure that they will deal with these different aspects. Thank you very much for listening.
Ladies and gents, shall we give Secretary a warm applause? Thank you po.